Listen, please like, subscribe, and share our YouTube channel.
Give him all my praises, cause he died for you and me.
Bringing awareness to domestic violence. You don't want to miss it, so tune in every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. on Facebook. Let's talk.
And that's why I keep praising him, cause
Let's talk.
he's so amazing. He's amazing.
Listen, please like, subscribe, and share. All right, Cheryl, I'm going to send you an invite. Don't do anything. See what we got. There.
Well, he will.
It worked like a charm.
Yes.
Yes.
Probably the weather. It probably is the weather. It's been nuts. You know, we've got like 5 to 6 inches of snow overnight. It dropped to below zero throughout the night. Got up this morning, it was 3 degrees.
Bless the Lord, child. I can't live there.
I lived in Alaska for 2 years, so it's...
Bless you, honey. Okay. Welcome back. Okay, guys, we are on. We are ready to go. Share the video, tag some friends, tell them it's on. This girl got a powerful testimony, and I'm excited. I'm ready to hear it. So Cheryl, I want you to tell your journey, whatever God allows you to tell. And then we're going to, after that, then I'm going to allow you to tell us what God is doing with you now as a domestic violence advocate.
All right. What time is it? What time are we starting?
We're starting at 7. It is now 7:28.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Gotta keep track of the time.
Okay.
So I'm Apostle Cheryl Richardson, and I appreciate everyone who's taking the time to come on and be patient and with the back and forth. The weather's really, really bad where I live. I'm never very specific about where I live. And as I share my story, you'll be better able to understand why that is.
Yes.
I'm a domestic violence survivor. I am a mental health professional, a career mental health professional. And I am a military veteran. I was a commander in the Air Force. So my experience is broad, but it's always involved, people. I grew up in a domestic violence riddled home. And so that's what I was exposed to, early on. The violence was not directed to me. It was directed primarily to my mother. I had a younger sister, and I had 3 siblings that are 10, 11 years older than I. So it was almost like having 2 separate groups of kids when you have that much of an age difference. The older kids don't seem to really recall an abusive environment, but they were, like I said, they were 10 years older. So they were up and out of the house when a lot of what I experienced began to happen. And, life happens. My dad was a military veteran. I learned later he had PTSD. It was completely and totally untreated. And so he developed a drinking problem. But he was absolutely brilliant. So now I'm sharing this so that people understand that when a child is exposed to violence, when they are exposed to trauma at an early age, they almost grow up seeking it later. Yeah. Not wanting to be abused, but trying to find something familiar. So it's almost like you go looking for the next person that's going to hurt you, because what you understand is you're going to be hurt somehow. Yeah. Now, in my case, it wasn't directed at me, but that made it more confusing. And so some people might think, well, okay, well, that's good. He wasn't abusive to you, but it was confusing because how are you spending time with me? He was never inappropriate with me or anything like that. My siblings didn't really care for school. I loved school. I was an A student. They had all those other alphabets. And so I'm sharing this so that you can see what the dynamic was in the house. My dad was brilliant. He was an accountant. He dressed to the nines. We had all the best everything. would never know from looking at our family outside what was going on inside.
Wow.
And if you told anybody, they wouldn't believe you because he presented as this upstanding, intelligent, handsome, dressed nice, always smelled good, always smelled good. But when he would come in the door and shut that door behind him, somebody else showed up. And I got so, as a little girl, I could tell we had like an opaque glass in the inside door. There was an outside door, there was a screen door, there was an outside door, and there was this little vestibule area between there, like where you could take your boots off in the wintertime and things like that. I got so I could tell by his body language that I couldn't even clearly see. I could see his silhouette through the glass. I knew what kind of evening it was going to be. I knew if he was in a good mood. I knew if he wasn't. If everybody needed to fasten their seatbelt, I could tell that before I even saw his face, just by his body language. And so children who grow up in an environment like that, they develop an ability to read body language. They can read it. They're incredibly sensitive to facial expressions and body language and, grunts because that's how you have learned to survive. And so it can make you extra sensitive. Because most of the time when you're interacting with people, right, they say what they say, you say what you say, you're not reading too much into it. There's a lot that we don't even understand when we're interacting with each other. So I'm put on my clinical hat for a minute here. Okay. The majority of our communication with one another is body language. It's not our words.
Yeah.
It's not our words. It's body language. It's all those little micro things that people don't pay attention to. You observe it and you arrive at a conclusion. A child who has experienced trauma has a heightened sense of awareness when it comes to that. When it comes to tone of voice, when it comes to eye contact, quality of eye contact, body language, the way you don't have to say anything to an abuse survivor. You don't have to say anything. Just stand in front of us. We can tell you all about what you're thinking, what you may be planning, because that's how we had to live, So I grew up in that environment. My mother was really smart. He would not allow her to go to nursing school. He told her she couldn't go. He would do just mean, nasty things to her, but he was incredibly nice to me. He spent time with me doing my homework. So it was confusing. You hear me? It's like, is this a bad person or is this a good person? Because he's taking me to baseball games with him. He's not, he's not beating me. But he was horrible to her. And there were times when I would not go outside and play. I would find reasons to come back into the house because I figured out that when I left the house, that's when he would jump on my mother.
Wow.
He would jump on her after we were sent outside to play. And so I never stayed out there. I always, every few minutes, I'm cycling back to the house. And then there were times he tried to drown in the bathtub. These are things that I saw. This is not something that my mother shared with me. These are things that I witnessed.
Right.
And so I would do things to distract him. I would smack him in the head with a pillow. Now, I'm not telling anybody that's watching this that that's what you ought to do. But I'm just saying, I was 9 and 10 years old. I had to try to think of something. I was pretty sure he wouldn't do anything to me because he never had. And I needed to give her time to not go underwater. I needed to give her time to not get choked out. And so I would do things to frustrate him so that he would chase me. That was my plan. And most of the time, it worked.
Wow.
Most of the time, it worked. Okay? And so survivors are often really great strategists. Really great strategists. You develop an ability to make an assessment about what's going on in your environment, and you decide how capable you feel of dealing with it. What do I need to do to survive whatever this is that just showed up in my life, right? So you grow up in an environment like that, it's confusing, and you want to be able to identify and to relate to other people, but you don't really have a normal example of what that looks like. You don't even know what is normal. Because at my house, I can't even tell you what's happening at my house because you wouldn't believe me, because he's just this amazing person when he steps outside the house. So growing up was really, really challenging. It was very challenging. I never felt like I wasn't loved. It was just very confusing. It was very, very confusing. And so when I grew up in Philadelphia, when I left there, I joined the military because I arrived at the conclusion that if I'm going to be okay, I have got to get away from here. Now, my father passed away in 1976. And I feel like I don't know who's going to watch this, but I'm feeling like in my spirit that I need to share that when I look back, I can see the risks that I took that were not wise. Looking back, not wise. So we left my dad when I was 10, and I helped pack up the house, and I was the only. We didn't tell my younger sister because she was more anxious and more sensitive, concerned she might slip and say something, or that she might just appear nervous, and he would figure it out. And so I was the only one that knew. And we packed up the house and we left while he was at work. And I remember him coming back into the house. He left for work. So I jumped up and I pulled the boxes out from where they've been hidden. And I'm packing. I'm still an expert packer. I started when I was little, okay? So I was packing. And then I heard the door again. And I thought, oh my God. There's no explanation for all these boxes. And then I'm just thinking, I'm like, oh my God. But I think he forgot his keys or something because he didn't come upstairs. He went back out. And so I don't know that I've ever been that scared in my life. I was just afraid. I'm like, I don't have a cover story for all these boxes in the middle of the floor right now.
Right.
I don't have a cover story. And so he went on to work, and so we moved out. But after we left, I continued to see him. Now, somebody needs to hear this. Somebody needs to hear this. Your child may see you catch it. They may see all of that. If that's their parent or if that's their caretaker, they have love for them also. And what children will often try to do is try to maintain some kind of relationship with either party. For me, it wasn't about not assigning blame. It was clear to me it was his fault. It was clear to me he was the abuser. It was clear to me he was the problem. That was clear. But this was also the person who took me to baseball games and helped me with my homework. And we would watch the news together. And I would lay on my stomach in the floor and read the paper, and he would help me with the words I couldn't pronounce. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm close to this person who is a threat to us. And my mother was afraid of him, and she should have been. That was a completely valid concern that she had. But this is what I did. I would go see him.
Wow.
And when I think back, I'm thinking, God really just has kept me my entire life. He has kept me my entire life. He has protected me my entire life, because that was crazy.
Wow.
So I go all the way across town and spend time with him, and then come all the way back across town, just like nothing happened. All right. If I had not been convinced in my mind that he was the problem, he could have very easily recruited me and weaponized me against my own mother. And so this is what I would tell a survivor now who maybe has exited, an abusive situation, that you have to pay attention to what's going on with your kids. You have to pay attention. You have to pay attention because there's some level of allegiance there. It's not normal to be at odds like that with a parent. That's not when you're young, and coming up. And so it goes against the way we're wired to not have any contact with this person. And it makes it easy for them to convert the children into flying monkeys. And by that, I mean the child that says, well, why did you leave, Dad? Why did you leave? Maybe you should try. But you say that you're a Christian. And you tell us to forgive, and you tell us not to fight, and he didn't mean it, and he had a bad day. You understand what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
you can find yourself in that situation if you don't understand the struggle that's going on within the child. So it's not unusual for children to be converted to flying monkeys. Even later, as they get older, and they realize, I don't have my father around, and it's your fault now. It's your fault that there's no father to take me to the daughter-father dance.
Yep.
If you hadn't burned the eggs, if you just hadn't talked back, you know what I'm saying? If you had been more understanding, okay, so be prepared to have to confront that moving forward. And a lot of times I think victims think, okay, I'm going to get out. I've got my voice back, and that's awesome. And I'm going to celebrate, and I'm going to rebuild my life. But there's so many nuances. There are so many things that you need to be aware of so that you are prepared for them, so that you're prepared to deal with them. Okay, so, I joined the military. I was enlisted for 8 years, and then I went to officers training school and got my commission. And, I was the commander for the largest unit on my base. It was a civil engineering squadron, and there were 7 women, including me. And so that was interesting.
Yes.
So around this same time, I'm in this toxic relationship. It was awful. Threats, walking around waving a weapon. I mean, if somebody's waving a weapon, Rebecca, guess what they don't have to say? They don't have to say anything, do they?
Nothing.
No caption needed. Why are you walking through here with a butcher knife? Why are you walking around here waving a weapon around? I won't let you in the house. Why are you cutting the wires on that air conditioning unit and it's 100 degrees outside? So these are the kinds of things, and I think the isolation that victims experience is bone crushing.
Yes.
Because you feel like there's no one that you can talk to. They're not going to believe you if they do. They're going to give you a quote or a scripture or something that causes you to feel like somehow you're deficient because you're a victim. They may ask you, well, what did you do to upset him? And let me just say, men can be victims too. Men can be victims as well, okay? But often, if you try to share it with someone, they'll say, well, are you sure that's what happened? Are you sure? You can be kind of sensitive sometimes. Oh, you know what? He had a bad day. Men, that's just, they get like that sometimes. And so once you hear that, now you really don't feel compelled to share anything else. Because you've got to get over the hurdle of what's wrong with me. How am I causing this? All right. And so I need to say this, that there is nothing that one partner can do that justifies the other partner becoming abusive. There is no good reason for it. Abusers abuse because they can.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with love. It was never love. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. This won't be popular, but it was never love.
Absolutely.
It's about power and control. It was always about power and control. And what an abuser will do is he will seek out someone. They are very picky. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know they're picky? They're very
really.
picky.
They are.
Seek out somebody that's got something. That's got everything. That's got everything. They've got motivation, and they look at them and they know that the potential is endless of what this individual can accomplish in life. And they want that supply. So they begin to work at convincing you that you have nothing to offer. Nothing. By withdrawing, by not talking. That's also abusive. Abuse begins long before they put their hands on you.
Oh, absolutely.
By the time a partner puts their hands on you, you shouldn't have been around for them to put their hands on you.
That's right.
You should have been gone way back there somewhere. You've stayed far too long. Okay? And so oftentimes you'll have people say, especially mothers, the first time he puts his hands on you, leave. No. We need to stop that. The first time he cuts you out, first time he cuts you out, first time he takes your money, the first time he denigrates you and talks down to you and makes no attempt to fix that or accept responsibility for it. The very first time he tries to flip it and it's your fault that he's cutting up. That is a tremendous red flag. But we have a tendency to make excuses for it. He had a rough day at work. Oh, well, he has a headache. Well, how frequent are these headaches? How many does his head hurt? He need to go see a neurologist if that's the case.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? And so we'll make excuses. The red flags are absolutely always there. People say there weren't any. Yes, there were. Yes, there were. So if anybody is watching this or listening to this and they really believe in their heart of hearts that there were no red flags, I'm going to give you my number at the end of this. I want you to call me so we can talk. And I guarantee you, I promise you, I can show you where the flags were.
They're there.
They're absolutely there.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what I had to learn to do was, what I've learned is identify the big lie. I call it the big lie. It's the thing that we tell ourselves that makes it okay to stay in harm's way. It's the thing that we tell ourselves, not what everybody else is saying. What are we co-signing that makes it okay to hang around and risk getting cussed out a second time? Getting pushed a second time, getting shoved a second time, them withdrawing and disappearing. That's abusive as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this whole laundry list of coercive control tactics that abusers use. And they use them in different frequency. There's always a cycle in an abusive relationship. Absolutely always there's a cycle. Now, my relationship cycle, it might be, we might go 6 months before they cut up. Your relationship, they might go 2. Folks going through this every day. But there is a pattern.
Oh, yeah.
There is a pattern. There's a definite pattern. You just have to pay attention. And let's say it's 6 months. Okay, they cut up. All right, they apologize. They buy you flowers. This is the usual. You know, they're very attentive. Everything that they always refuse to do with you, they're willing to do it now because they don't want you to exit. And as soon as they get you pulled back in and they're comfortable that they got you locked down, they start up again. There's definitely a pattern. And the fact that it's not once a week or not every day or not every other month is not the point. Identify the pattern because there's a pattern. There's a definite pattern. Okay. And so we go through this stuff in childhood and it predisposes us, okay, because you've developed all these skills, these extra skills, right? That maybe other people your age may not even have because they've not been under that pressure growing up. So all of that is appealing. All of that's appealing. The more confident, the more accomplished you are, the more they want you.
That's true.
Not because they're proud of you, because they need to deplete you, and you have plenty for them to siphon off. You've got all these great qualities, and that's what they're after. That's what they want. And at the same time that they're depleting you, they will convince you that you don't have anything going for you. Well, over time, you'll believe that. It's the only way you can stay. You can't stay in it unless you co-sign it on some level. You have to start to acquiesce to what they're saying, or you couldn't stay. A person who is healthy, male or female, the first time you cuss them out, it's like, oh no. No, sir, no, ma'am. No, absolutely not. Right. I'm not doing this. Okay, this is not my life. This is not my life. But when you factor in the need to make excuses, when you factor in the spiritual piece that has been responsible for so many women even losing their lives, being bound by misappropriated scripture, being bound by patriarchal foolery. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Hosea 4 says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because they reject knowledge. And everybody wants to stop at lack of knowledge, which is an awesome excuse for doing nothing. Okay? But it's not that we don't know. That's not what gets us in trouble. It's when we refuse the information that's offered to us. When someone comes to you and says, I'm concerned about you, you don't seem to be, quite yourself, you got a bruise, or you seem depressed, and you deny it. You're offered an opportunity to watch your life. You don't do it. There are groups on Facebook, for example, that you could join. You don't do it. So it's when we reject the knowledge. It's when we reject it. God is obligated to cover us until we know. Okay, until we know that help is there. Okay, and so we reject it. We make excuses, we dismiss it, and we keep ourselves in harm's way. Well, I mean, the word of God is the word of God. And he doesn't want any of us to be destroyed, but we have to be willing to accept the help. And so those of us who are advocates, the best thing we can do is to cry aloud and spare not, to keep talking about it, to keep talking about it. I really believe that whenever forums like this are made available to people, somebody out there, and we may never even know who it is. We may never meet them. We may never hear from them. Somebody needs to hear that there is life after abuse.
Absolutely.
Somebody needs to know that. Somebody needs to know that it's not going to be a walk in the park. No, it's not. No, it's not. You might leave, and you might be scared after you leave. You might leave, and you might be doing cartwheels after you leave. But there are a series of things that you need to be educated about so that you can remain safe when you leave. Okay? Did you know that 1/3 of the women who get restraining orders that are murdered within 1 month of getting it?
Oh yeah, I believe that.
Within 1 month.
Yeah.
So 30 to 90 days is a you think they were mean and nasty before. 30 to 90 days, you are in heightened danger.
Yeah.
And when we think about that, it's like, okay, so when you leave, right, that's the most dangerous time. Yes, but this is what you also need to know. Say you call the police and they're arrested. 30 to 90 days after they get out of jail, you're in heightened danger. The clock didn't start for them until they got out. While they are in, it's still your fault. You have cost them their job if they had one. You have cost them their education. They can't stand you. You think they couldn't stand you before. They really don't like you now.
Absolutely.
And it's all their fault. And they've had 90 days to talk themselves up.
Oh yeah.
Into this frenzy. So 30 to 90 days from the time that they're released, you're also at heightened danger. And moving forward, let's say they get new supply. That's usually what they do. If you hold your position and you don't re-engage, they'll find somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to find somebody else. And so when they find this other person, if that person breaks up with them, guess what? It's your fault.
Yeah.
That's your fault. Anything negative that happens in their life from that point forward is going to be your fault. It's be your fault. If they don't get help, it's going to be your fault. And so now you're in heightened danger again. So that's one of the reasons, like I said, I'm vague about what my specific location on purpose. And I have a high profile on social media. I'm on all the platforms. And I'll post where I was, because if I post that I'm there, I'm not there anymore.
Wow.
I'm checking in as I'm exited. I'm not there.
Wow.
I'm 30,000 feet in the air, and that's where I was. Okay.
Wow.
So once you survive a situation like this, you have to adjust the way you live and how you approach life. And some women would say, well, but I feel like, I'm being held hostage. I feel like he's controlling my life. No, 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 no. You are protecting your life. You're ensuring as best you can that you continue to have a life.
That's right.
So don't turn it into a power struggle. Don't do that. Don't do that, okay? But use wisdom. I do everything that I want to do. I go everywhere that I want to go. All right? And I stay ahead of folk. I stay ahead. I stay ahead. I stay ahead. Every once in a while they'll reach out. I don't respond at all. I don't say, don't contact me. I don't say nothing. I don't
That's
ask
right.
how everybody's doing. I got nothing. I'm not saying anything at all. You can't aggravate me enough to get me to respond. I'm not responding.
That's right.
I refuse to respond, okay? And so we have to use wisdom going forward. The thing that, despite my history, even into young adulthood, right? The thing that really impacted me was the Karen Smith case in San Bernardino. And this occurred back, I think, in 2017. So prior to that, I would always post, about domestic violence. And I certainly have strong feelings about it, having gone through it for a huge part of my life. But there was something about her. She was a school teacher. She was a special education teacher in San Bernardino. And she was a Christian. She was committed Christian. She was active in her church. She was all of that. Everybody loved her, real sweet spirit. I mean, all of that. And her husband, that she was estranged from after having only been married for 4 months. Now think about that. How many women do you know that after 4 months of marriage would be ready to pack their stuff and get out?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What is going on in there? What is going on in there? You should still be honeymooning. What's going on that you can't even live in the house with it anymore? That is just too much. So that lets you know that it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense. And so he went to the school and he shot and killed her in her classroom, in front of all these children, her teaching assistants. And then there were 2 little boys that the police believe hid behind her when they saw that he had come in with the gun. Both of them were shot. 2 9-year-old boys. One of them died. And then he turned the gun on himself in front of these children.
Is that the that's the incident that happened like 2017, something like, or 16.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband was a preacher, was a minister.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I posted that on my page.
Yeah, he did that. And then when I researched her story, it just bothered me because, one of the things that I've done as a civilian is I was a principal for an alternative school.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole idea of somebody just like rolling up into the school and doing that in front of the kids, these kids already were struggling emotionally or whatever. They had to witness that. This is what he did. And then a few days before he did that, he was on his Facebook page talking about how amazing she was. And she really understands me. She knows how to get my attention. And I'm thinking, dude,
yeah.
He killed her. Okay?
I remember that.
Yeah, upstanding person, everybody loves her. She's actively involved in the ministry. You know what I'm saying? I think she had something to do with the music ministry, and I believe she was doing something with the children as well. But when I looked at her Facebook page, and went through her pictures from after they got married, and the expression on her face. I told you, victims are we're sensitive to body.
It told it all.
It was.
Yeah.
It broke my heart. This is a honeymoon picture, and her affect. I was like, that poor woman. So one day I know that on one of my platforms, I want to have a discussion about why, and this is a challenge to the spiritual people. Why are women who are committed to their faith, why are they dying?
Ooh.
Because of violence. Why are they dying? Because of domestic violence. Why? Why are they dying? And I'm an apostle, I'm a prophet, so I get it. I understand all of that. I have a doctorate in theological studies. I'm clear about all of this. But that's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can go to church and someone can prophesy to you that you're going to get a new car or you're going to get that promotion. All right? You're going to get that Michael Kors bag that you want because you're a faithful tither. But God's not telling anybody,
Ooh,
person sitting on the pew with you, that their life is in danger.
you better come on through here tonight.
That's not his character. That's not his character. That's not his character. So why can't we hear him?
And why can't we see it? Why can't we see what we saw in Miss Smith's face, the
Right.
agony, and that something is happening?
Right. And why are we so self-absorbed that, well, how you doing, Rebecca? I'm fine. People who know me know that don't resonate. If it doesn't resonate in my spirit, I'm gonna tell you, well, that wasn't very convincing. What's going on?
That's right.
What's going on? I've had people walk past me at work, and I say, "Come back here." What? Because I sense it. It's like, what is wrong? Something's wrong. Something's not okay, you know? And so if we could just not be so self-absorbed and actually devote some time to actually listening when we ask people, how are you doing? Something as simple as that. Actually tune in. They say they're fine. Do they seem fine to you? Because if they don't, you may be their only opportunity to even find the courage to say.
That's right.
What's going on. And it's a very narrow window. It's not a window that's wide open all the time when someone is actively being abused. You have to catch them when that split second where they might actually tell you the truth about what's going on. And if they don't get the right response or the right reaction, or if they get dismissed, then they shut down. It could literally be years before they even try to tell anybody that they need help. And that's if they live. That's if they live. You know, so why are committed spiritual women, why are committed faith-filled women dying? Why are they being abused? Why are they dying emotionally if they don't die physically? How is that possible? How is that possible? How does the enemy roll up into God's church and just take people out like that?
Wow.
With all of the seers and prophets and apostles and deacons and deaconesses and all these spiritual folk, that's a problem. That's a problem. And that's why I can't stop. That's why I can't stop. One of the issues is the horrible advice that people get when they do talk to their pastor. Now I'm going to say this, you know, and don't y'all get mad at Rebecca because we didn't talk about what I was going to say exactly. So
I'm not mad.
You know, it's we struggle to address a thing when we are complicit. So many leaders are guilty of being emotionally abusive. Many leaders are guilty of being emotionally abusive, verbally abusive,
Physically abusive,
sexually abusive.
Yep.
At home when that door closes.
That's it.
And you would never know it to look at the pictures and the accolades that get posted on social media.
Come on through. Come through with it.
And so it's kind of hard for you to address something when you actually doing it yourself. Now, if you're a really big devil, you'll do it yourself and act like you addressing it from the pulpit. You just a hypocrite is what you are for real, right? But so if the person who's over the house of worship is complicit, you're not gonna rise above that. That's a spiritual law. What you gonna do? You can't what? What you gonna do with that? If they're not allowing it. They're not allowing it. You know, if we're fortunate, we might get a handful of pastors, apostles, bishops that will address domestic violence in October for about 5 minutes, maybe. Probably not on a Sunday. It's going to be on Wednesday night, but don't nobody come. You understand what I'm saying? We can do series on everything else.
But none on domestic violence.
How to prosper.
Yeah.
But not domestic violence.
That's it.
Not on human trafficking. Not on substance abuse. These are all things that have permeated the church.
Yep.
Cross denominational lines. I'm going to make that clear. Across racial, economic, denominational, all these lines that we like to draw to make ourselves different from one another. Everybody's got this problem. Everybody's got this problem. You know, and we just have to keep talking about it. We have to keep talking about it. I have to keep talking about it. I must, you know. And what people don't understand about advocates is this. It's not a hobby.
Oh, it's not.
It's a calling. It's not a hobby. It's not something that you post about every now and then. You think about it all the time. You are constantly wondering, what more can you do? How can you do it? How can you position yourself so that the people who need to hear it, can hear it?
Can hear it, yeah.
Because isolation is a huge linchpin of domestic violence. The fact that most people around you don't know. The fact that you're hiding it. Or you're making excuses. You're making excuses for when it happens, you know? And you'll find yourself isolating from your family, your support system, whoever this is for. People that you know love you, people that you know you have always been able to trust. You lying to them, telling them everything's fine, making excuses. If you run into that door one more time, okay, you keep telling, I ran into the door. Oh, I bumped my arm when I was getting out the car. Well, why don't you have any money? Well, are you going to tell him? Well, because he takes all of the money. Even though he might not be working.
Come on through.
You make more money than anybody in the family and you never have any money. What's up with that? You see what I'm saying? And so you make excuses. The isolation is huge. And so I think what God did for me, because in the military, I'm surrounded by men. And working in mental health, running mental health facilities, the staff were 80% men. So I've always had men around me who didn't treat me the way I was being treated at home. Wow. And that's what helped me to maintain my sense of self. And it's what gave me the wherewithal to exit. Because I've got one critter saying all these things about me. And I got all these other people who are around me all day that don't have a problem getting along with me. They don't have a problem showing me respect. They're not being inappropriate or anything. They just treat me like a human being that knows what she's doing. And so there's one of them, and then there's all these other people. Yep. And so what saved me was I was not isolated. I was not isolated. And I would get a steady diet of the negative, but I would also get a steady diet of the positive. And over time, this is what happened. The positive went out.
That's right.
Because I arrived at the conclusion, all of these people cannot be wrong. They spend too much time around me. So that means you're the problem. I'm not the problem. You're the problem. And so that's how I was able to move away from that. And even after that, there's healing that has to happen.
Yeah.
Now, people have asked me, well, why is it that I go from one relationship to the next and they get worse and worse, or it's the same? Because you haven't healed.
That's right.
Because you haven't healed. Okay, and this is what people will say. I've not been in a relationship for 10 years. Okay, the avoidance of a relationship does not equal healing.
It doesn't.
You don't have to work. You really don't have to work on nothing, right? If you're not in a relationship at all, there's what you can work with. I mean, you don't have to. There's nothing demanding that you work on yourself. There's nothing demanding that you look at what has hurt you or how broken you become or how you got there in the first place. How do I prevent this from happening again? And so it's the staying out of a relationship is not the cure. I'm just saying.
Oh, absolutely not.
Magic wand. It just means 10 years down the road, when you meet somebody and y'all start crushing on each other or whatever, you have all this stuff that you've never addressed. You have all this stuff. And if they're unhealthy, they'll hang around and try to fix you.
Mm-hmm.
If they're healthy, they'll say, you have a lot of things that I think you need to work on. And they'll leave you alone until you can address some things. Okay? And so this is what happens. This is what happens. And I'm just about done, unless you have some specific questions for me. This is what happens. You go through a relationship and it's not good for whatever reason. Maybe they're not a bad person, but you're just different and it's not melding, it's not meshing or whatever. The next relationship, what we tend to do is we look for the one thing that we think that if it were present, that relationship would have been great. If only they would listen to me when I had something on my heart. If only they like to engage in outdoor activities. If only they weren't so tight about money. So we look for that one thing that we feel that if we had it back here, we would have been okay back here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is we're neglecting everything else. So if the person that I was with doesn't like to talk to me and doesn't like to share about their feelings, for example, right? And then I meet Ray, and Ray is hanging on my every word. It's easy for me to forget to make sure that Ray's not robbing banks, make sure Ray doesn't have a history of domestic violence, make sure Ray is a decent human being, because I am so enthralled with the fact that he's listening to me, that I'm minimizing everything else, not paying attention to anything else, because I'm totally focused on what I feel I was starved for. And 9 times out of 10, that's what we do. Moving from relationship to relationship. I just need somebody that's going to hear me, that's going to talk to me. I just need somebody that likes to cuddle. Okay. You don't mind cuddling. He's taking all your money. But he'll cuddle with you. But he's going to take your car and not bring it back. Oh, but he's cuddling with you. You understand what I'm saying? And so when we're getting that thing and we feel like we're starved for it, and the longer we feel we've gone without it, the worse it is. We're not paying attention to the whole person. How do you feel with this person? And how do you feel away from them? Do you miss them when you're away from them? Or is it like, whew?
Ooh, thank God.
All of that is very telling. It's very, very telling. It's very telling. So my thing is, I want people to understand that it is not God's intention that anybody be in an abusive relationship.
That's right.
Period. It is not. It is not. Okay? He did not send that person into your life. He didn't send them. That other entity sent them and you kept them. That's what happened. God did not send them. He did not send them. And so when we tell ourselves that, we absolve ourselves of any responsibility for choosing to engage in something that's decidedly unhealthy, right? Jesus went to the cross, so we don't have to get crucified all over again.
Come on now. That's right.
He did that so we could have an abundant life. And so God didn't send them. They showed up, they picked you, and you stayed picked. They showed up, you picked them. Well, why wouldn't they stay picked? You got all this going for you. Like, who in their right mind would say, I don't want nothing to do with you? You got all this potential. You are fresh supply. They're not walking away from that. Yeah, no, they're not walking away from that. So we have to understand, we have to be able to accept responsibility for our choices, accept responsibility for overlooking red flags, explaining them away. All right. Our actual gut, our stomach, abdomen area, our gut is wired physiologically to let us know when something's not right.
Oh, absolutely.
And people will say, well, it's a gut feeling. That's an actual thing. That's an actual thing. Now you may not be able to identify it or put your finger on it, but there's something that's not quite settled. Something feels just a little bit off. Just a little bit off. And so I'm challenging people to pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. And don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss it. Because the more you dismiss it, the further into this trap you are walking.
That's right.
The more of yourself you are investing. And the more we invest, the more difficult it is, right? The more we sow into a situation, if you want to look at it from a spiritual standpoint, the more seeds you put in the ground, the more love, the more emotion, the more support, the more encouragement, the more difficult it is to extricate yourself when things start getting dicey. All right. So am I telling anybody to be afraid to move forward in life? No. But I'm saying continue to listen, continue to pay attention, and understand that whoever it is, I don't care if they're an apostle like I am. I don't care if they got 10 churches that are mega churches. I don't care if they lay hands on the sick and they recover. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. It doesn't matter. If they are mistreating you, okay? Now, this is a whole other topic. If they're mistreating you, there's an anointing for everything. Satan was anointed. So we got to stop being confused about that. We need to stop being confused about anointment. You need to stop. It does not mean this person is in right standing with God. It does not mean that it's by God's power that they're doing whatever they're doing. People go to church and pray and preach and sing and have people slain in the spirit and all of that, and go home and beat their wife.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right? I mean, I had a pastor years ago. And I mean, I think I had been saved a whole 5 minutes. Like, I wasn't an apostle. I didn't even know that God had this prepared for me. But I had a pastor in a church that was thriving and growing, you know, going door to door and witnessing, and the church is growing, and you know, you come to church on Sunday, you got all these people joining church, and wonderful, right? The first lady was killed while we were in Bible study at home. 2 or 3 months after that, he was arrested for involvement. You hear me? This was a successful businessman. He was very charismatic. He was, you know, he was honest even about the offering. He didn't say, you know, if you give this much, God's going to bless you with a new car. He said, only thing I can promise you is if you give $50, you're going to have $50 less when you leave than you had when you came. So, you know, I mean, you know, entrepreneur, outgoing.
But abusive.
And was sentenced to life in prison.
As they should be.
Right. So we can't get confused by the facade. I mean, when I think back, I couldn't even tell you what his wife's voice sounds like. She never said anything. She was real sweet, real quiet. Okay, knowing what I know now,
that was the sign.
There's no telling what she was going through. She was so, and she
timid.
would respond if you wanted to hug her. She would do that fake, that light thing. You know what I'm saying? But she very rarely. She would look down all the time. Very soft spoken. I'm like, oh my God.
That's the signs.
I mean, I was a baby Christian and I didn't know nothing. But I'm looking back, I'm thinking, wow.
Mm.
So we want to be more sensitive to what's going on with the people around us, and just little things like if you ask someone how they're doing, be genuinely concerned enough to listen, pay attention. If it doesn't seem right, something's probably wrong. Something's
Yeah.
probably if it doesn't seem right. And so the Lord had me to establish Judas Roar Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative. We got our 501c3 approval at the very beginning of this, very end of last year, very end of 2020. And our focus is education. Our focus is on education. And, we are willing to educate congregations or organizations, individuals, families, education. Because people have to understand what it is. Many people don't even understand that they're being abused. Some people don't understand that they're being abusive.
That's right.
It's the way they've always been. It's the way they've always been. The Lord has blessed that there's a state's attorney in Florida that has accepted our courses, our YouTube for free trial sentencing for abusers, for victims, that they can go through that and get a certificate and to show that they've been educated thoroughly about domestic violence. And so we have a YouTube channel that
That's
has
awesome.
over 90 videos on various aspects of domestic violence. And just whatever the Lord drops in my spirit, and I pray about it all the time. And so the thing is, I believe that He'll give me the topic because that's what's needed. That's what's needed then. Whoever is asking, praying, seeking an answer to their situation, to their circumstance, they need to be able to find it somewhere.
Yeah.
They need to be able to find it somewhere. And so we pray, and whatever God tells us to talk about, that's what we talk about. We do a video about it, much as, as you do here. And so, because whatever it is that we put out, it needs to be timely.
Yeah.
It needs to be timely. You know what I'm saying? You need to know what an abuser may say or do or why. You need to understand if you're getting ready to leave an abusive relationship and you have young children, you need to understand how that may affect them. What are the things that you want to look for? And how soon is it okay for you to let your guard down? What is it that you need to do? Safety planning is critically important. Safety planning is critically important. I would not advise anybody to leave without a safety plan unless your life is in danger right now and you need to go right now. But if you're in a relationship that's unhealthy, you know that you don't feel good in the relationship. You know that you feel sad. You know that you feel hopeless or that you feel scared or whatever it is that you're feeling. And I would tell someone, even if they're thinking, well, but I love him or I love her, right? I love them and I don't want to leave. Here's what I'm saying. Especially if you plan to stay, you need a safety plan. You need a safety plan. Especially if you're planning to stay. You really need one. Because things can turn on a dime. And what are you going to do? And so the purpose of a safety plan is what? To prepare, this is a military thing, prepare for your most stringent tasking. You prepare for the absolute worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute worst case. Absolute worst case is they're going to try to kill me in here. They're going to harm the children. They're going to harm the pet. You want to have a safety plan so that you know what to do and you're not trying to put this all together. You're not trying to put it together while you're under pressure. And so I would say connect with a domestic violence advocate, connect with domesticshelters.org, connect with the hotline. You can inbox us. There's Stand Up Survivor. There's so many opportunities to get some help with that. You want somebody to look at beside you because you've got blind spots. That's how you got into that situation in the first place, those blind spots. So you want somebody to look at it beside you so they can ask you, well, what about work? What about going to work? You might want to start planning on changing jobs. You might need to change the school that the kids go to. Now, that might be less of an issue right now because of the pandemic and a lot of virtual learning is going on. But things like that, you can't, There was a prophet who killed his wife in Orlando a few months back.
Yeah, I
He
remember that.
and he went to her job.
Yeah.
He did. He went to her job. He knows her pattern. He lives with her. He knows that she probably parks close to the building when they first get there, and then as the sun comes up and all that, then people come out and move the vehicle. He knows all of that. He killed her right in front of her job
Yep.
on camera.
Yes, he did.
On camera.
But he
You know.
told her, he told her brother about 3 weeks before that he was going to murder. He said, I'm going to kill him.
Well, and he said, if I be a lying prophet, then I won't kill her.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what he said.
Did you hear what
And he
she
did
said?
3 weeks later.
She said, I don't want to call the police. I don't want to do that. I was in tears listening to that. When her brother told her, well, we need to call the police. He just threatened you. You have to take that seriously. She said, but I
Yep.
don't want to call the police. I said, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah, I saw
So
that.
that's the typical response. And that's the result of trauma bonding. And it's the result of coercive control. All these tactics that they use that make you feel like you need them and you can't be okay without them. And it's your responsibility, especially if they are a professional or a clergy member, right? They have this high profile status that they need to maintain in the community. It's your responsibility to cover them, which is code for don't tell anybody how they're treating you.
Yeah,
After the
that's how a lot of women in the church feel and
mm-hmm,
think
mm-hmm,
because um, of how they are looked upon
mm-hmm,
once it has come out that if I call the cops, then they're going to know and they're not
mm-hmm.
going to believe me. So
Right.
that's a statement that a lot of women in the
Yeah.
church say, I don't want to call the cops.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, yeah. And it's further complicated by the fact that if you're talking about a minority, you know, a call to the police can end up in any number of unfavorable ways.
Absolutely.
So then there's all of that to contend with. And so, I would tell anyone who's in a situation to continue to educate yourself. The thing about it is, the more education that you receive, the more information that you receive, and the more undergirding that you receive from others, from advocates, from other survivors who have moved past where you are in their journey, it will tip the balance. It will tip the balance where you understand that you should exit, that you should have a plan, that you are worth it, that there is life on the other side of it. But just like they're getting a constant onslaught of negative information, we have to make sure they get a constant onslaught of hope.
That's
Of
why
hope.
what we do is so, so, so important. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we as advocate, I'm going to speak for me. I have, um, in one state, I have police officers who are dear friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I have the domestic violence advocate of the police department who's a dear friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we as advocates, it's so important that, and I'm working on this myself with WarriorShe, trying to get some things in place that if I get that call
Mm-hmm.
that I need help,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the state that we're in with calling police officers right
Right.
now,
Mm-hmm.
um, that I can help them and have something in place, and
Mm-hmm.
also call that officer friend of mine and say, listen, I got so and so. We got a plan. We need to get her out. I need your help as far as law enforcement is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
All of that ties in together
Yes.
because when you have that one or two officers in law enforcement that you can call and they're going to make sure that they get the help and get it properly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then it makes what we do so much easier. I tell people all the time, since I've been on this platform doing these shows, you can't help but to feel my guest's heart, when they're telling their journey and telling their testimony. This to me is not a game. This thing is so serious because there's somebody's life that's
Yeah.
depending on
Yes.
you. There's
Yeah.
somebody's life that's depending. If they inbox you and say, listen, I need to talk, I need help, or
Mm-hmm.
call, this is a serious
Right.
thing. And there's so many components that has to happen to make sure that when they call,
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to be safe getting out.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
and you said something early on about the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been saying for the last few years, the churches, our black churches, got to step up and do more.
Got
You
to.
know, they teaching on prosperity, and that's okay. But why isn't it that once a week or once every other week or once a month, are
Mm-hmm.
you not having a study on domestic violence?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
like you said, most of the reason is because there's pastors and deacons sitting up in the church that are the abusers.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
it has to be addressed because you got
Yes.
so many women in the church now dying at the hands of their pastor husband or their deacon husband or the trustee husband right there in the church.
Yeah. And I mean, and pastors need to be trained. They need to be trained. I want so much for them to understand that God called you to preach, preach. That's awesome. But you have to be skilled if you're going to be messing around in somebody's life and trying to counsel them. One of the things that happens often if someone goes to their pastor is the pastor will decide that he wants to talk to both of them. And he or she wants to
I've
hear
heard
both sides.
that. I've heard that.
They want to hear both sides.
Yeah.
Well, this is not a WWE competition. And any skilled clinician will tell you that's a horrible idea.
Horrible idea.
Horrible. And it doesn't matter about sides. If you're sitting in front of me with a black eye, I don't need to hear the other side. There's nothing you're going to tell me that's going to make that okay. That's
Nothing.
not okay. There's
That's right.
nothing. There's nothing. She did something you didn't like. He did something you didn't like. Leave. What do you know what I'm saying? Why are you putting your hands on people? Why are you being verbally abusive? Did you know that emotional abuse victims are more prone to develop PTSD than even someone who was physically aggressed against?
Oh yeah. I believe it.
It's just, and then you can't get anybody to believe that you're being abused if that's the case because, they're only words, right? They're only
Yeah.
words. So there's so much. And I think that pastors and bishops, ministry leaders need to be educated. They need to not be prideful. They need to be able to refer. They need to acknowledge that they're in over their head, that they don't know what to do, that they don't know what to say, or that they don't understand the dynamics of domestic violence. The other thing that can creep in is pride. Well, I'm the bishop, or I'm the apostle, or I'm the prophet, or I'm the teacher, or I'm the deacon, I'm the head deaconess, or whatever. I
And
have
this
a
my
relation.
church. This my
Right.
church. You know,
Mhm.
I run this house and
Right. And I have a relationship with Johnny, so I'm going to talk to him. Well, here's my question: were you not Johnny's ministry leader before he put his hands on her?
mm,
Because you being his friend didn't prevent him from putting his hands on her. It didn't prevent him from emotionally or verbally or sexually abusing her. So what makes you think you have so much pull that you having a conversation with him is going to change something? He knew you were his pastor when he did it. It didn't stop him. And so pride creeps in. Well, I'm going to talk to them and then it'll be okay. And if you're wrong, the victim is in more danger
mm-hmm.
than they were in before you even opened your mouth. And so pastors need to understand what to look for. They need to understand where the resources are, either within the congregation and within their local community, where should I send someone who is struggling with this? How does that work?
It's true.
How does that work? Right?
Yeah.
There was an incident in, I don't know if it was Georgia. There was an incident, this was last year too, where this couple was separated. They were both ministry leaders. They had their own church. She was at a women's conference, and he came to the women's conference when it was over. He came to the conference, and he shot and killed her outside the church in front of the pastor.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
it's like, and I don't know if he killed her. She didn't die. He turned the
That
gun on.
particular lady didn't die. He turned
Right.
around and shot himself. He
He shot
died,
himself, and he died.
but she survived.
She
She was in
survived.
critical condition, but she survived.
Mm-hmm. And so the thing is, my understanding is that the pastor knew that they were separated. They had given her a ride to church, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't know what else to do other than to say, I'm going to give you a ride, that's not, listen, 20% of the people who are victims of homicide and domestic violence relationships are not even the victim.
I believe it.
It's a first responder. It's an innocent bystander. It's their support system. It's whoever allowed them to come stay at their house.
Yep.
Whoever the abuser thinks is helping them becomes a target. And so people need to be aware of that as well.
Yeah.
And so I say for the people who want to get deep and mystical and say, I'm going to go with God, you need to be careful. And you need to be educated about how best to navigate that so that you don't end up being a hashtag because you were trying to help somebody.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes you leaving that state. I was talking
Mm-hmm.
to my daughter came to me last year about a young lady in New
Mm-hmm.
Jersey that had been her cousin called that had been abused for years.
Mm-hmm.
And he would track her down when
Mm-hmm.
she would leave him. He would track her down through her cell phone. He
Mm-hmm.
had some kind of tracking device in her
Oh,
cell phone, and he had all of the cell phones and the car in his name. And come
mm-hmm.
to find out, he had a tracking device in her car. And I said to my daughter, I said, have her or her cousin call me, because she's going to have to ditch the cell phone, the car, and anything else he gave her. Anything that's connected to him, she's got to get rid of it. It's got to be gone. And
Mm-hmm.
she's probably going to have to leave New Jersey for a while until she is getting to a safe place
Mm-hmm.
where you can live.
Right.
And
Right.
then when it's safe, and because he's going to do what he's doing to you to another woman,
Oh, yeah. He'll look
or
for
he's
some.
going to do it to somebody else. You're not going to be there, so he's going to do it to the next woman. He's going to get caught up. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you got to leave home.
Sometimes you have to leave. You have to leave. And you have to accept this was a very expensive decision getting into this relationship
Yeah,
with this person. And you pay what you have to pay and you move on with your life.
you have to.
The key,
Sometimes you got to leave state, you got to
right,
leave family.
right.
Um, if you sometimes you got to reach out to an advocate in another state. Listen, I need help. I
I need to
need to
get
get
away.
out now and
Right,
get away
right,
and ditch everything that's attached to him.
right. And going home to your
Everything.
parents or going to your sister or going to your best friend, that's where they're gonna look first.
That's right.
The assumption is going to be that you're at the person's house that you talk to all the time.
Yeah,
You at your best friend's house.
that's
Okay, you
right.
might be at your boss's house if your boss is a friend. You know what I'm saying? And so they know who you're close to. That's where you don't want to go if you can
That's
help
where you don't go. That's who you
it.
don't call sometimes.
That's right.
You gotta
That's right.
come off, the norm.
Well,
Because they're gonna try to track 9 times out of 10, they're gonna try to track you down.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, don't I know?
Yeah, they're gonna try to track you down.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get in a safe haven, get in a safe place, you gotta get away from the norm.
But to get away from the norm and you need a plan. You
Yeah.
need a And people say, well, no, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave until the kids are this age. I never debate with someone, because here's the thing. If they leave and don't stay gone, a woman leaves on average, 7 times. 7 times before she stays gone, if she lives to even leave 7 times. Sometimes you don't have that many times. All right. And the problem with leaving and coming back is that when they look back, they're looking for indicators. They're looking for red flags that you were about to make that move.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for red flags.
The
Oh, she
danger
was.
in going back now versus
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, the dangers in going back to that abuser the first time, after leaving the first time, is that women now and these babies are dying after they go back after that first time.
Yep.
One time I didn't hear about, a woman would leave 2 or 3 times
Right.
before she finally left. But
Mm-hmm.
now it's like,
They're
you
not
go
getting that
back
many.
after leaving that first time,
Mm-hmm.
within weeks or months, he's murdered you.
Yes. 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 And it's gonna probably be within 30 to 90 days. That it
Yeah,
just blows my mind. That's just pretty consistently. That's how it works out.
yeah.
Pretty consistently. The same thing with getting a restraining order. The same thing. And so whenever we make a decision, a major decision, you have to have a plan. You have to have a
But
plan.
you
You don't
can't get a
really.
restraining order and still answer his calls.
Well, that's
You
it.
can't get a restraining orders and still, when he pop up at your house, open the door.
Right.
You can't get a restraining order and still hold on to the cell phone that's in his name. Hold on to everything that is linking him to you.
Stay in contact with his mama, with his sister, who's
Because
your
I have children and I want my children to have a relationship with their grandparents, because it's not his mother's fault, it's not his sister's fault. Well, mama and sister couldn't stop him
right,
from banging your head in.
right,
So
right.
guess what, sis? Right now, you got to separate from mama and sister too,
Yes. You
if
gotta
you
be.
want to live.
That's it. If you
Because
want to
see,
live.
now this thing is a life and death situation.
Right,
You
right.
got to cut all ties with him. That means his mama, his sister, his brother, his cousin, them, all that.
Mhm. And you
Get
don't want to
away, get your
confide.
kids to safety. You got to
Right,
cut all
right,
ties.
right. And so the danger in leaving and not being serious about that is you're up in the ante.
Oh yeah,
If you leave, you really need to stay gone, and you need to
oh yeah.
cut ties. You
Cause
need to
now he
go.
real mad. Now
You
he
need
real
to get.
mad. How dare you leave me?
Right.
How dare you leave me? How dare you go? Who you take a restraining order out on me? Now he real angry. That devil
Now.
done rose up. That devil done rose all the way up here now.
Right. Right.
Cause
And
I'm
you
the
couldn't
man.
before, right? And you couldn't reason with him before, right? So what are you
You
gonna,
sure can't reason with him now.
right? And so we'll come back, So a lot of times, victims get lured back. They get lured
Mm-hmm.
back with promises of, "I'll go to counseling." They ain't never been interested in going to counseling before. All of a sudden now they willing to go to counseling.
And I was one of those ones that got lured back after being gone almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
I've changed. Things are going to be different. I went back. I went
Mm-hmm.
back to him.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what happened?
What happened?
Within 2 weeks, it wasn't even 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
he showed up
Mm-hmm.
again. The
Mm-hmm.
real him showed up.
Right.
And when I
Right.
when I went and filed for the divorce and he got served, I knew the day he got served. I was in
Mm-hmm.
the laundrette with my two girls, and he saw my car, and he came into the laundromat, and he walked to the back of the laundromat, and he sat on a table, and he just watched me like
Just
this
up this. Mm-hmm.
the whole time, didn't say a word. And when I
Mm-hmm.
got home that day, later that evening, he came to my house. Didn't know my brother was in town for the military.
Mm-hmm.
Came to my house, and I reluctantly went outside. What do you want? I want to talk about the girls. I sat on his seat with almost my whole lower body hanging out of the car with the door wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And before I could get my foot planted on the ground, he sped off in the car. with half of my body hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And I screamed, and my brother heard my scream and ran the car down. That devil rose up in him. He couldn't control himself. He got them divorce papers.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you?
Right.
How dare you?
How dare you
If my
leave me?
brother had not been there, I dare to think what could have happened. That because he was trying to kidnap me. I dare to think what he would have done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And so we want people to understand that this is serious, that it's serious. It's not that, I'm leaving, attention seeking, leaving. It's not, I'm leaving because I want him to pursue me and beg me to come back or whatever. It's very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Yeah,
And it's important if you leave that you have a plan so that you can stay away and maintain your safety. And as you
that's
said,
right.
you may have to move
Yeah,
all together. Think of it as an adventure. Okay, you may need to change jobs. You may
yeah,
need to let your job know that this is a situation. I think about the Karen Smith situation, and I wonder. I don't think the people at her school even knew that they were separated. So if people don't know that, they don't know that when they see him or her in the parking lot, that this really should not be happening.
that's
They
right.
should not be here. This is a problem. If they think it's business as usual, what's wrong with somebody showing up to have lunch with their partner? What's wrong? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with them showing up with flowers, or showing up with candy, or showing up with a card? What's wrong with that?
That's right.
So people have to be aware, because if they're not, then they're at risk and they don't even know it. They don't know that this unhinged person is an unhinged person because you haven't told anybody that this
That's
person
right.
is unhinged. They just think this is Joe and he wants to go to lunch with his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, And so we've got to be able to talk. We've got to be able to share. We've got to
Yeah,
be able to be supportive, genuinely supportive. We need ministry leaders and business leaders to step up,
yeah, absolutely.
really responsibility for the safety of the people that God has entrusted to their care. And for
That's right.
those ministry leaders who feel like, well, God has called me to deal with young people. God has called me to deal with this. If we don't address these things, Rebecca, that has the church by the throat, if we don't address those things, everything else that God has called you to do is being jeopardized.
Mm,
Everything else, no matter what you're doing. I don't care if you're the Sunday school teacher. I don't care if you're a Sunday school teacher. Statistically, you got a handful of kids in your class that are living in an abusive environment.
that's right.
You've got women in your women's department who are living in an abusive environment. How much can they glean from you if they're distracted every day about just simply staying alive?
That's right. Absolutely.
So in order to maximize whatever part of the vineyard that we feel that God has called us to, we have to address these things. We have to address domestic violence, human trafficking, substance abuse,
Mm,
pornography, all kinds of addictions, the things that have a stranglehold on people who maybe mean well. You know what I'm saying? But we have to address those things. Otherwise, we're just dealing with the surface.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why we got to keep advocating. We have to keep talking about it. We got to keep it out there. We gotta tell it. We gotta um advocacy is needed.
It is. It
Very
is.
much so.
It is.
And I'll say this before we get off. And because I've been asking this question for the last 2 years. Um
Mm-hmm.
I asked a couple of pastors in one state, why is it that you don't have an advocate in your church, in your ministry, that
Mm-hmm.
who will I call if I need to get out because my husband is about to kill me?
Mm-hmm.
Who is it at your church can I call
Mm-hmm.
that I know is going to not judge me and help me get to
Right.
safety?
Right. Right.
And I had one pastor tell me they were working on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked with the domestic violence advocate at the police department in that same city, and she said every time they would have a meeting
Mm-hmm.
addressing domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
only one black pastor would show up. And I thought that was mind-boggling to me because
Right.
I'm like, people are suffering, people are dying in the church,
Mm-hmm.
women and children,
Mm-hmm.
because the deacon, the pastor, the boyfriend, or whoever done killed them, and you're not addressing it, and there is no safety net in the
Right.
church for it. It
Mm-mm.
has to be a safety net in the church.
Right. Right.
Churches, churches for the sick.
Mm-hmm.
Churches for those that need help, those that are sick, supposed to be able to go to the church
Right.
and seek help.
And seek help. That's right.
If
That's
I am being abused at home, I should be able to call that domestic violence advocate at that church and say, listen, I need help.
mm-hmm.
And not worry about that person going
Repeat.
back, calling Sister Susie, Sister
Right.
Barbara,
When
talking
you
about my situation and the abuse that I'm living in.
right, right. And I would
It,
say,
it,
a pastor who doesn't have that person in their congregation, why can't you be the person in your congregation?
yes,
Why
absolutely.
can't you be the person? Why can't you get some training so that you know how best to help your congregation?
I agree. Cheryl, we're gonna have to come back again, girl.
But just let me know when.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to make another
Know
date.
when.
We're gonna have to, because this conversation has to happen, and it has to keep happening. We got to
Yes.
keep putting it in people's ear,
Mm-hmm.
and putting the information out there, letting our sisters and our children and even some of our men know there's help.
Right. That there is help. That there's help
There's
out
help.
there. That there is absolutely there's help out there. We
So
have a
I
we have a private Facebook group called Dominion Over Domestic Violence, and it
okay,
is unapologetically faith based.
okay.
Okay. All right. So we talk about
Yeah.
God over there. We talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
God,
put
you
that
know,
in a
and
comment in this video so people can have that,
okay.
and whatever else information you want them to have,
The YouTube.
about your advocacy, put it in a comment where people can go to it and see it and reach out. Um, like I said, we're gonna have to do this again.
Okay.
Soon we're gonna have to come back and just keep putting it out there. Just keep putting it
Yeah,
out
we
there.
have to
Yeah,
keep going.
I,
And
I
let me just say this: that people wonder how that they can help, entities like you, entities like Judas Roar, how you can help. Absolutely, you can help financially. Finances are always helpful, okay?
right.
Always helpful. But there are other ways that you can help. When we post things, you can share them. Share them on
Yes.
social media platforms. Say something supportive and share it. Share it to everybody on your timeline, because the people who need it are the ones that you think don't need it.
That's it.
The ones that
That's
you think
it.
have it all together, that's who probably needs it. And
Yeah.
so you can share, post, you can do that. That would be such a tremendous help.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Just
know?
spread the word. If you share the videos and share the posts, the information that we put out, and when someone has been murdered, share it, share it, share it. Tag your friends in it. Get the information out, because see, I tell people all the time, this thing ain't about me. Because see, I ain't had nothing to do with this platform. This was all God.
Listen.
Listen here. This wasn't even planned. This thing right here, God did this all by himself.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't even in my mind,
Right.
and sometimes this thing get heavy. This
Right.
right here,
It
this
does.
warrior she thing,
Mm-hmm.
this thing gets heavy on here. It
There's a
gets
weight.
overwhelming.
Yeah. There's a weight, and so, it's just help us to get the word out. Help
Yeah,
us.
because it ain't about no money. Because warrior she ain't making none.
Right. Listen.
This ain't
That's not
what this is
the
about. You
grind
know what I
is.
mean?
Right.
It's
Right.
about bringing awareness, getting the information out, getting the knowledge out, letting
Yes.
our sisters and our brothers that are in this dark place know we care. We love you. We've been
Yeah.
there. We
Yes.
survived it. We made it. There's help.
That's it. That's it. And you mentioned
That's what
kidnapping.
it's all about.
I experienced kidnapping. It's like I felt like at one point, Rebecca, I felt
Hold on a
like,
second. Hold on a second. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
I had to take my earphone. I saw my battery. Thank you.
Oh,
It's very,
okay.
very dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I remember going through a period of time in my life where I felt like I had gone to this movie. It wasn't even a good movie. And I like wanted my money back. Like I felt like I was starring in a bad movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, this cannot possibly be my life.
Can't be.
How did I get here? Right?
Cannot.
You know,
But people,
and so we know you feel that way. For those
yeah.
of you listening, we know you feel that way. We know how that feels.
We know how it feels. We've lived it.
We know how that
People
feels.
that's in that dark place right
Mhm.
now, that's living in domestic violence. There's somebody right now at this moment that's getting their head banged in.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? They're getting
Right.
their head banged in.
Mhm.
And they got a family member or a friend telling them, well, girl, you chose him. Why don't you just leave? Well, sometimes
Right.
it ain't that simple.
It is not that
Some
simple.
people don't have a safety net to go to.
That's right. It's not that simple.
And WarriorShe might be their only safety net.
Right. Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Judas
Absolutely.
might be their only safety net.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to get the word out, to share the videos. I heard somebody say one time about trying to go viral. And listen, go viral for what? I'm trying to save somebody's life.
Right. Try to give them hope.
On Facebook or looking at the news or getting a call that one of my sister girls got murdered, somebody stabbed her to death 11 times in her house and left her in a 1-year-old baby in the house all night long with his dead mama. I'm sick of them calls.
Right. Right.
It ain't about viral. It's not about money. If it was about money and about going viral, child, I'll be trying to sing my way to viral and making me some money. This right here, there's a lot of weight that comes with this.
It is a lot of weight. It absolutely is. And
There's
it's
a lot
always
of weight.
there. And it's
Because
always
somebody's
there.
life is in jeopardy.
Right. And it's always there.
Yeah.
You know, it's always there. So that's what I meant when I said in the very beginning, it's not a hobby. It's like, oh, that's a worthy cause. That's not what this is for us.
That's right.
It's not just, it's like I need to do 2 good deeds a week. That's not what this is.
That's not what it is.
It's about being available and trying to practice self-care, but being available to those people who are in that dark place, who cannot see around that
You're available
obstacle.
24/7.
That you're available.
You're available 20. When you put yourself out like this, or Judas Roar, you are now available 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I don't have a right not to be. I don't have a right to leave you out there like that.
If I wake up in the morning and I done got a text message that I didn't hear, or I got an inbox message that I didn't hear while I was asleep, I feel like I've let that person down.
Right. And you pray.
I didn't answer their call last night.
Right.
I didn't answer the text last night. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like, and I work a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm up 5:30 in the morning going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but if I miss that text message or if I miss that inbox message, I had somebody call me one night, must have been about 10:30 something. I was asleep. I woke up the next morning, I had a missed call from her, an inbox message, and a text message.
Wow.
I felt convicted because I felt like I let her down.
Right, right. And then you just pray that everything's okay.
That everything is okay.
Thank
God it was.
Still be a
she was
support.
in a bad place, but she needed to talk. Like right then, she was the verbal abuse had almost pushed her over.
Yeah. And that will do it.
When I finally got her on the phone, I said, "Oh, thank you, God," because I told her, I said, driving to work, and I'm like, Lord, please let her be all right. Lord, please let her be all right.
Right.
But I felt like I failed her because WarriorShe's supposed to answer the phone.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
You feel me? One of my sister girls texting me and calling me last night, and I didn't answer.
Right.
So now I'm getting I got one of my girls that work with me. We're setting up a whole phone line. That is going to be not only for me. When I get the message or text, it's going to go to 2 or 3 people.
Right.
So one of us will be able to answer.
Right. Right. And we literally just established something like that a few days ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got her working on that
Yeah.
now. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have that up, because she was like, when the calls come, because she said they're getting ready to come. She said it should not just fall on you.
Right. Right.
So she set it up where it's going to go to one of three or four people, because that's what this is. This somebody's life
Right.
may
Right.
be.
And then you have to practice self-care. This is the therapist in me talking. You have to practice self-care, because if you get burnt out, you're the visionary.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You're there. And so, we can have great help around us. We can have great help and great support, and they can hold our arms up like they did in the Bible back in the day. But the visionary has got to be solid. You have to be solid. You've got to have balance. You know what I'm saying? And so, I'm going to be praying for you too, that God continues to expand what you're doing, and sending help that has your heart for impacting lives and saving lives. And it's encouraging to know that there are many of us out here. There are many of us out here, and that's encouraging, because you go back 20, 30 years, you couldn't find no help.
Couldn't find no help.
Didn't nobody even want to talk to you about, what you mean he hit you? No, girl, you can't talk to me about that.
Yeah, I remember when I was in the 30 plus, about 30, 32 years ago, 30 plus years ago, that the domestic, what? I didn't even know its name.
Right.
Until literally about 15, 18 years ago.
Right.
That's when I found out, okay, that's what I went through. That's what it's called. Domestic.
Right.
I didn't even know it
happened today. That's part of our job today, so people can understand what it is they're experiencing. Yeah. And in some cases, what it is they're actually doing to another human being that they claim to love. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Listen, this is so needed. Like I said, we're going to have to schedule another date, and we're going to have to come back on here, and we're going to have to keep pushing this thing. We got to keep talking.
We got to keep pushing it. We got
to keep talking.
Yes.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
My heart. I thank you. But we will be talking soon. I promise you that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, dear.
All right. Blessings. Right. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. I know this has been a long night, but this was needed. This was needed. This word was needed. That was my new sister friend, Cheryl Richardson. She has she's frozen a little bit. She's trying to come out. She has her brand is Judas Roar. And I thank God for her. I thank God for tonight. I know we went a little over tonight. We went a lot over tonight, but if y'all listen, share this video, get the word out, what we're trying to do, advocacy, awareness. People need to know that there's help. There's help. That we're here, and we're trying to do what we can do to save somebody's life. So share the video. Those of you that don't know, I have a YouTube channel called WarriorShe Room. You can go on YouTube and pull it up, subscribe to it, and share it, all of that good stuff. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for hanging out with us. Next Tuesday night, we coming back at 7 o'clock.